Alright guys, today we're going to unpack RI 8.1, our first standard of the year. So RI 8.1 is to cite the textual evidence that most strongly supports an analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. So here's how we're going to unpack our standards throughout the year. We're going to see color-coded words. On the bottom, we will always remind you what those color-coded words mean. So the red words are our verbs. Those are our actions. This is what we're going to do. The blue words are our nouns. These are things that we need to know in order to understand how to use our standard. And the yellow words are adjectives or describing words. So our unpack standard is cite or quote textual evidence, which are facts in writing, that most strongly support an analysis or examination of what the text says explicitly, clearly, as well as inferences or conclusions drawn from the text. So what this all means is we are going to be reading stories, passages, articles, poems, whatever it may be, and we are going to have to use evidence from those texts to support what the main idea is. And I'll give you some examples as we go. So here's our vocab, and we will have a little mini quiz on our vocab. So I think it's very important that you guys maybe copy the slide, take a picture of it, a screenshot, and study these words. So analysis means a detailed examination of anything complex in order to understand its nature. So this is when you are kind of like, think of it scientifically. You are studying something. You're trying to understand how it works. To analyze means to study or determine the nature and relationship of the parts of something. Cite means to quote by example, authority, or proof. This is your evidence. You are citing directly from a text to support your argument. Conclusions are reasoned judgments. Conclusions are not guesses. Explicitly means clearly and without vagueness or ambiguity, which means we cannot argue it. It is directly said. It's something that was quote for quote explicitly. Implicitly means to be indirect. It's something that is implied. If I were to say, were you born in a barn? I'm implying that you probably left the door open, but I didn't directly say it. Inferences are something that we derive as a conclusion from facts. To infer does not, again, mean to guess. We are making a logical, educated guess based on what we read. Logic means something that is true or valid. Textual evidence is evidence gathered from the original source or other text that supports your argument. So sometimes when you're maybe talking to somebody and they say, okay, well, where's your proof? How can you prove this to me? So you would say, well, I read it in this news article the other day from the New York Times, or I saw it on the news, or I read it in a story. Usually saying something like, my friend told me, that's not a really valid source. Just because your friend has an opinion about something does not make them an expert, and therefore their evidence might not be the best, unless your friend is an expert on the topic. Here are the things that we're going to need to know throughout this standard. How to use textual evidence to support your opinions, the importance of drawing conclusions as you read, how to make inferences consisting of pairing information in a text with one's background knowledge to understand something that is not in the text. Sometimes we need to use our information with knowledge that we have heard before to make a conclusion. We're going to be able to understand the difference between explicit and implicit, how an author makes explicit and implicit meanings, how to support an inference with textual evidence, how to draw conclusions, how to make appropriate connections to prior knowledge, how to judge between weak and strong evidence to support an inference. We are going to analyze what the text says, make inferences, draw logical conclusions, cite pieces of evidence from the text to support analysis, inferences, or logical conclusion, identify the support for the assertions the author makes, judge whether evidence strongly supports a conclusion or an inference. And these are the types of questions that we're going to see as we research or study this standard. And these are the kind of things we might see on an EOG. These are the kinds of questions they will ask that have to do with citing evidence. And they are, what is a strong inference from this part of the text? What specific details does the author use to convey this idea or claim? In what paragraph is there evidence that most strongly supports blank? What is explicitly stated in the text about blank? Based on the selection, what can be inferred about blank? Which piece of evidence most strongly supports your analysis of blank? This last question is the one that I personally see a lot. Which evidence best supports? And there might be some answers that seem like they could fit, but we need to go with the one that best fits. So we're going to teach you how, and we're going to talk about how to break apart answers, how to identify the best answer, things like that, and how to eliminate other answers. So we're going to practice one time. If you need additional help, obviously we will provide that. So this is from All Summer in a Day. This is a very popular story that we might read. So how does the reader know that Margaret was unhappy? That's our question. He gave her a shove, but she did not move. Rather, she let herself be moved only by him and nothing else. They edged away from her. They would not look at her. She felt them go away. And this was because she would play no games with them in the echoing tunnels of the underground city. If they tagged her and ran, she stood blinking after them and did not follow. When the class sang songs about happiness and life and games, her lips barely moved. Only when they sang about the sun and the summer did her lips move as she watched at the drenched windows. And then, of course, the biggest crime of all was that she had come here only 5 years ago from Earth, and she remembered the sun and the way the sun was and the sky was when she was 4 in Ohio. And they had been on Venus all their lives, and they had only been 2 years old when last the sun came out, and had long since I'm sorry, I cannot see the bottom of this. Forgotten the color and heat of it and the way it really was. So we're looking for the sentence that tells us, how do we know that she's unhappy? And you could say, well, she just moved there. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't know how to play tag. But which specific sentence said something about her being unhappy? So your answer should be, when they sang about happiness, her lips didn't move. Because what do we do when we're happy? We smile. But Margaret is not smiling. She doesn't sing along with them. So this would be your answer if they asked this specific question. So that's just one example. We're going to go through many others. We're going to practice this. And that's all. Thank you.